One of the reasons that people are so concerned about cholesterol, it seems like we lost a lot of great people recently in the bodybuilding community to heart attacks and different things. But there's been a good amount of professional bodybuilders or high-level bodybuilders that have died recently. What can somebody that is a bodybuilder, power lifter, or performance athlete do to mitigate the risk?
I think you got to try to be reasonable and practical. There's some people that can make it to the top without utilizing a lot of performance-enhancing drugs, and there's other people that might feel they need more. But in your pursuit, to try to be great at something, I still think that there has to be a part of you that's at least a little bit reasonable. And so, getting your blood work done and trying to take some precautions with, if you're a power lifter, doing some type of cardiovascular something or other, and for someone that could just be a walk with a weight vest or something like that, or a little bit of treadmill work or something of that nature. In powerlifting, you see like people are on kind of a handful of different steroids, literally 3 to 5 different things maybe at the most. Bodybuilding is not like that. People are on a really vast, they're on a large amount of different things, and some of those things can kill you just from messing up, taking it improperly, something like insulin or something like that. Yeah. So DNP, which is a fat burner that people get into. I mean, so there's just, with bodybuilders, it is, you could probably say it's a more risky sport than like NASCAR because of what some of these guys are willing to do to try to get to the top. And like I said earlier, for some reason, there's some guys that don't necessarily need to go as extreme, and therefore maybe they can do it safely. We can look at Jay Cutler and some of the people of the past and say, I wonder why nothing happened to them. They pushed the extreme. But that was them, and that might not be you. So you got to somehow be reasonable in your pursuit to being great, that those two things don't go together very well, so it makes it difficult.
One of the most...
I was going to say that I did a video called If You Want to Be Healthy, Don't Compete. And I understand the desire and the drive for people. I think they did the study on the Olympians or people who were competing in the Olympics that, if they could take a pill and they would get a gold medal, but they would die or it would compromise their longevity, they would still take it, or at least half of them would. If you want to be healthy, don't compete. There's a big difference between health and fitness. Fitness being the ability to perform a particular duty or task. The fitness level required to be a world's strongest man, or to be a UFC champion, or even to be a 14-year-old gymnast in the Olympics with all of the injuries that they suffer, or a 10-year-old badminton player in China with lateral collateral ligaments blowing out. That fitness level is not necessarily healthy. And so we understand the drive and the desire, but we have to exercise some caution, like Mark said, try and mitigate some of the damage. That's what I've found myself primarily doing for my clients historically, especially those larger clients competing in those sports that might compromise their health, is to mitigate the damage. And Mark hit on something that's very important. There is a cluster of performance-enhancing drugs that people have to choose from, and people often opt to choose the ones that have the most side effects, and those don't necessarily give you the greatest effects. But people confuse side effects with effects. Oh, this stuff's working. I used to think the same thing when I took that Gainers Feel 1000 and then the Gainers Feel 2500, which was just more sugar, and it would give me diarrhea, and I thought, oh, this stuff's working because of the diarrhea. And so people will start taking a lot of these drugs and have all of these side effects, the acne and the high blood pressure and the rest of that stuff, and think that those are effects, that they're actually getting stronger as a result of them feeling something from the medications or the drugs, the performance-enhancing drugs. The primary concern is going to be those that elevate blood pressure and those that compromise kidney and liver health. And you can monitor those things with regular blood testing, and you can try and get ahead of those things, use less of those kinds of compounds or alternate compounds. We don't have to go too deep into that don't cause as many side effects. And then just to be a little more patient and understand ultimately that taking twice as much of something isn't twice as effective. You'd be lucky if it was even 5% more effective. Be patient, proper programming, consistency, discipline, those kinds of things. And obviously monitoring your health, because long term, I've been competing since 1986. So long, how long do you survive? You know, are you a flash in the pan? You know, we see a lot of powerlifters in this industry who have come in and did very well, and they just disappeared. I don't say they died, but they're injured or their health was compromised to such a degree that they can't compete anymore. And you don't want to be one of those guys. You know, so be patient. I didn't turn pro until I was 40 years old. I didn't set my world record until I was 45. I started when I was 18. So, you know, if you have to wait, wait. But eventually, with consistency and hard work, you can probably achieve, you know, again, Mark hit on something very important, that genetics reign supreme, and you might not be able to accomplish what some other people out there in the industry can accomplish just because they have a predisposition. You know, you're not going to be Larry Wheels, and you're not going to be Ronnie Coleman, which takes us into another avenue with respect to, you know, Ronnie Coleman's current circumstance with his back. People will say that, you know, look what happened to Ronnie with bodybuilding and powerlifting, et cetera. Ronnie's current health problems, is being in a wheelchair, isn't a result of lifting weights. Lifting weights is one of the safest things you can do, particularly in comparison to almost any other sport. Has a lower injury rate per hour invested. Ronnie's problem was he got bad advice and got a back surgery. Same thing happened to Flex Wheeler, got a back surgery, and then another back surgery, and then another back surgery. That's when I think you know, intervention should have been taken prior to the surgeries. I'm not a big fan. And Doc here at one point lost his license for trying to prevent helping people prevent surgeries, because he understands that there's interventions that you can take to reduce the likelihood that you need surgery, and your outcomes can be just as well, and ultimately got your license back. Congratulations, because you were right, that there are things that people can do to mitigate pain and to prevent surgery, and that's you know, ultimately the goal.
All right. Well, you guys all have something in common. You're all savages as far as like in the gym, with your diet. You guys all run really successful businesses. What point did you guys, because you all really believe in the diet that you're pursuing, whether it's a vertical diet, a carnivore diet, you know, Mark sort of mixes it up and does a little bit of everything, but like, what is it about these diets that have gotten you so locked in and so dedicated to these great habits, and how can other people form these habits?
I used to weigh 330 pounds, you know, when I was going full tilt with powerlifting, and Stan Efferding was somebody that came in to super training years ago, and from that moment on, that had a huge impact on me, having Stan around. Stan came in, he just got his pro card in bodybuilding. He was working with Flex Wheeler, and Stan came in and started lifting with us, and he was just lifting these enormous weights. He started to lift so well that it was like, okay, this guy seems like he's on track for some all-time world records, and he's not even really a normal, like, he's not powerlifting all the time. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, this guy's really super strong. He might be one of the strongest guys of all time, but he's not fat. And so for myself, I was like, all right, well, it looks like you might have to change up your strategy a bit, because my strategy at the time was just to get as big as I possibly could and to lift as much as I could. And then, you know, when I fell with 1,085, that was a turning point for me to look into nutrition, and I started talking with Stan. I started to look at other diets. When I was younger, I did some diets that were kind of like more like low carb. But the biggest change for me from years ago, and what has gotten me to be so fired up and excited about every single day to set things up like this and to do seminars and lift and do stuff with the family and all these things, is my nutrition. My nutrition is a focal point of everything. When that's compromised, I'm compromised. When that's messed up, I'm messed up. For me personally, it's very difficult, and I've done this as like an experiment, to just go like a week or 2 weeks even, and just eat whenever you'd like and eat whatever you like, and it doesn't work well for me. It changes the chemistry of my brain. I don't feel as good about myself. I'm not nearly as productive. So getting a good dose and taking the steps to get yourself into a diet, once you get like locked into it, you don't want to come out of it. Some people that are listening to this right now, you might know what I'm talking about. If you ever got on a nutrition plan and you started cruising along for about a week and you were like, you know what, week 2, I'm gonna have a little cheat meal. When that day comes, if you really worked really hard for 14 days and you're on a good diet that's giving you the nutrition that you need and you're really excelling and you're making improvements, on that 14th day, I guarantee you that the last thing you're gonna wanna do is cheat on yourself and cheat on your diet, because you know that it's gonna throw you backwards and you know the potential tailspin that it could lead to. So for me, the nutrition is a huge component to the entire thing, and the way that people can get themselves into it is simply by getting into it. You got to take the first step, and that's why I so often talk about something as simple as a 10-minute walk. But for people that are like overwhelmed by diet and they're overwhelmed by nutrition, just try something for a meal. Try your dinner tonight. For your dinner tonight, don't have any carbs. Just eat a steak. See how you feel. The next day when you wake up, say, you know what, I'm going to see how it is with pretty much just steak and eggs today, and just keep it to that, or keep it to some natural foods or something like that. I mean, there's ways to kind of baby step this stuff in. There's ways to just stick your toe in the water and kind of see what it's about.
Either you're in or you're in the way.
All right, well, I mean, you know, just to the nature of your question, you know, what kind of gets me to do this and how do I stay focused on this stuff? You know, as a physician, you know, I went into medicine with the aim of trying to improve people's health. And I found out, you know, after 20 years in it, I wasn't really doing a particularly good job at it. I mean, I was doing what I was supposed to do as a surgeon and having outcomes that most people would consider very good, but I wasn't really helping the people in the way that I'm able to do that now. And, you know, I mean, literally every single day I get people, and I know Stan does too, messaging you, say, look, I am no longer on medications, I'm no longer depressed, I'm happy again, I have a life again, you know, I've gotten off, you know, all these different crazy diseases. That's what motivates me to continue to do what I do, and you know, and present a unorthodox or a controversial dietary strategy. But I mean, honestly, I'm not even, you know, as much as I promote a meat-based diet, I think there's other things that people can do and other things that are successful. Stan's a perfect example of what he does. And I think at the end of the day, we have a society that I'm watching become further and further less healthy. And you know, I've got children that I care deeply about, and I want to see a good future for those kids. And so that's what kind of gets me doing what I do. Now, I mean, the part about why do I lift and train hard, I mean, that maybe that's a mental illness, I don't know. I mean, it's just something that I've been, you know, since I can remember. I mean, as a 9 or 10-year-old kid watching Bruce Jenner win the Olympics, that inspired me to start doing it. Now, I'm not as inspired by what he's doing now, but I mean, I very much, that's been part of me. That's just part of who I am. I mean, you know,
You've always been a competitive
right?
person,
We all are. I mean, this is this. If you take this away from us, you might as well kill us. I mean, this is. I mean, seriously, I couldn't imagine a life where I did not have some sort of physicality. And I think this is very important as we go into the brave new world or the future, when we strip the physicality, the visceral emotion, and you know, part of life that we have, we take that away and we outsource it to, you know, the transhumanism or the metaverse. We're going to have continued problems, and I think we have to continue to educate, inspire, you know, hold people accountable to this. And so that's what I'm trying to do on a daily basis. You know, and the biggest concern I have is I want to demonstrate to my kids this is how I live, and they're going to take those patterns. And if it happens on other people, that's great too. And I think that's all what we all do.
Chris, you hit on it, and Mark just kind of repeated it. He said that, you know, try a bunch of different things. The best diet is the one you'll follow. I have never heard Dr. Baker say that the carnivore diet is for everyone, and it's the best diet or the only diet. It worked for him. It works for thousands of people who are now in his network. And at the very least, try different methods. What we know from the weight control registry, and this is a study of over 10,000 people who have lost 66 pounds and kept it off for more than 5 years, 98% of them went on a diet. A plan is better than no plan. You need to have some sort of plan in place. And at least execute that plan, whether it's for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever time frame, so you can see if it works for you or not. There's nothing more frustrating to us as coaches when somebody comes in and you give them a plan and they go around, they ask 12 other people, and then they kind of, you know, they program hop, or they, you know, just kind of hodgepodge it. Give it a try. whatever it is, whether it's the Mediterranean diet or whether it's the keto diet or whether it's the carnivore diet or the vertical diet, try and do your best to execute that plan, see how it works for you. How do you feel? Did you get the results that you were intended to do? Because weight loss is not the primary goal. 6 out of 7 people who go on a diet lose weight. Weight loss maintenance is the primary goal. It's not a diet. It has to be a lifestyle, something you can sustain for the long term, that you can retain those gains or losses or whatever you call them. And so the best diet's the one you'll follow. Same thing's true with exercise. The best exercise is the one you'll do. Now, we're adamant about the fact that as a priority, the first thing that we would recommend is that somebody would lift weights. And that's not because we want you to be a bodybuilder or a powerlifter, because we know it's the most effective method for long-term weight loss maintenance, for all-cause mortality, for all those important things in terms of insulin control. The list goes on and on and on. So we're going to recommend lifting weights. What we also find as trainers, I've been a trainer since college. I worked in a gym. I've owned a couple of gyms. I still train people and clients today. What I find is that it's a hook. We talked about this on our 10-minute walk today, that one of the reasons we love to get people to lift weights, particularly heavy weights like a deadlift, this is one of the reasons that so many women are now competing in powerlifting. You see a full day of powerlifting on the weekend now that's just all women in all weight classes. A lot of them come from CrossFit because they touched a deadlift bar. They lifted something heavy. And 2 days, 3 days later, they lifted a little more. They were able to add 5 pounds. And a week later, they could have one more rep. And that is the hook. That's what gets people the progress, seeing the progress. And so we do that strategically, intentionally with a new client. We come in and we get them to pull a trap bar deadlift. It's so simple to do. And then 3 days later, we bring them in and we add 10 pounds and tell them to do it again. That's the hook. Having said that, the best exercise is the one you'll do, and if we can find an exercise that you enjoy that includes some loading, that's pretty important, the loading component, not just cardio, although cardio is great for health and cardiovascular fitness. Particularly for women, you need the loading, particularly axial loading, because it's not just calcium and protein, it's the resistance component added in there that's going to provide you the bone mineral density that you need to not suffer from commonly osteoporosis as women age. So we love lifting. That's, and people, it's easy for us to say. We would not miss a training session. It's the highlight of our day or week to go in, and like today we crushed a workout this morning. I am ecstatic, I'm euphoric. You can see I'm talking fast, I'm excited, because that was the highlight of my day, everything else. And it was such a release of stress, kind of like the 10-minute walks at a micro scale. The training is just an enormous release of stress. All of us experience stress. I did a video called Stress for Success, where I talked about that very foundation that a lot of people look at stress as something they need to get rid of or eliminate. And that's not the way stress works, particularly if you want to be successful. You actually have to be able to endure more and more stress. It's just like lifting. It's like weight on a bar. You put 200 pounds on the bar, and if you can only bench 100, it's going to crush you. But if you can bench 300, that 200 pounds you're doing for reps. And that's how I look at stress. How strong are you to cope with that? How do you build strength for stress? And that strength is built, the foundation is built from good sleep, regular exercise, and a good nutrition program. Now you're strong enough to handle whatever stress comes at you, and the release is something physical, and the weightlifting to us is probably the most effective for that.